Barcelona. It's going to be a beautiful weekend to go Grand Prix motorcycle racing in one of the most beautiful cities, or on the outskirts. We're not far away from one of the most beautiful cities, not just in Europe, but in the world. Spectacular, cosmopolitan Barcelona, just a short drive away. Then here is your Q1 lineup. Quartararo, Oliveira, Mir, who as mentioned just topped FP2, Aldeguer, Miller, Rins, the Gian Antonio, Martin, Fernandez, Aleix Espargaro wildcarding for HRC, Bagnaia, who had a terrible Friday outside the top 20 in both sessions, Salvadori wildcarding for Aprilia, Viñales, and the returning Songkyak Chantra. Welcome back, the Thai rider. We haven't seen him in competitive action since the Dutch TT in Assen all the way back at the end of June. Looking forward to this one. This should be a cracker here in the Monster Energy Grand Prix of Catalonia. Already plenty of fans have made their way to a track that has been a mainstay on the Grand Prix calendar since the early 90s. I think only Jerez and Assen have staged more successive Grand Prix on the current calendar than this brilliant Barcelona venue. Well, yesterday when he spoke to the media, when he spoke to Jack actually in the broadcaster set, Pecco Bagnaia said he would need a miracle to get himself into Q2. Can he find that miracle coming up in the next 15 minutes or so? He's got it all on, Bagnaia, to find himself into this second qualifying session, given the calibre and strength of the competition, and given just how much he's struggling right now on the Ducati GP25.
We're talking about a rider there who's got 25 MotoGP pole positions. Of course, one of them as recently as Brno. And it feels like a long shot, a serious long shot for Pecco Bagnaia to get into Q2, a Q2 that he would normally just take as read that he would be a part of. Jorge Martin, who himself has many a MotoGP pole position over the years, he has 20 of them. Certainly unlikely, given the stage of his Aprilia development that he's at, that he's going to add a 21st here today. But we do have two Aprilias already into qualifying too. It is a bike that has historically gone well around this circuit, even if Marco Bezzecchi did say yesterday that part of that was down to Aleix Espargaro's rather unique riding style. But Martin, the second of our world champions in this session here, is your third.
Yeah, and second behind Marc Marquez in terms of the number of poles scored so far in 2025. It's Fabio Quartararo. Big ask if he's to make it a fifth pole this season for the Frenchman, who was a whisker away, wasn't he, from being directly through to Q2. Just 0.03 of a second he finished behind Agura at the end of yesterday's practice session. Already a strong Saturday for Joan Mir on the factory Honda. He has just led the way in FP2. 4 MotoGP World Champions then coming up in Q1. This is about as tough as it gets to find your way out of this opening 15-minute session. This is going to be pretty exciting, folks. Strap yourselves in, because it could be a roller coaster ride. This one, Bagnaia's very keen to get on with business here.
Yeah. Oh, well, two of them definitely won't go through to Q2. And hey, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that all 4 of them might get knocked out here. And when you look at some of the other contenders that are in this Q1 session, and Miguel Oliveira, who was 11th yesterday, or 12th, should I say, just behind Quartararo. But we've also got Fermin Aldeguer, who will surely fancy his chances on the Ducati GP24. We've got Fabio Di Gianantonio on the current spec Ducati, the same bike that Pecco Bagnaia is riding and loathing by the sounds of it. And of course, we've also got Maverick Viñales on the Rapid KTM this weekend. So it's by no means certain that even 2 of our world champions are going to get out of this one.
Yeah, it's always a tough challenge negotiating Q1. Even tougher when some of the superstars of the current MotoGP era are on track as well. Here is Aldeguer then. He felt like it was all a bit scrappy, a bit messy at the back end of yesterday's practice session. Took the blame himself. He wasn't looking for excuses. He just said, I just made too many mistakes, too many errors when I was on the soft rubber in the 2 time attacks. As Quartararo just trying to generate some temperature in those front brakes. Just behind him is the KTM of Maverick Viñales. Just good to see Top Gun out on circuit right now. He said yesterday, it's a gift just to be riding here back a lot sooner than he expected. Way shy of peak physical best right now is the number 12, still struggling with that recovering left shoulder he damaged so badly in that Q2 crash in the Sachsenring. Lost so much muscle mass. He said effectively it feels like he's riding with just one arm at the moment. Big issues braking into left-hand corners with the weak left shoulder, and he's finding it quite tough as well to get into the tuck position for the maximum slipstream down the start-finish straight. So plenty to occupy Vinales' mind as he tackles this Q2 session.
So we drop downhill now towards turn one. So important to get your braking marker right when you're braking from around 350 kilometers an hour down to under 100 to turn one. That is what Pecco Bagnaia now is, and it's so difficult, must be so difficult for Pecco Bagnaia in his mind, so used across his MotoGP career to battling it out for pole positions. Now he's just trying to make sure that he starts in the front half of the grid.
Yeah, it was last November where we were talking about a miracle in Montmello for him to win 3 successive World Championships when he was trying to overturn a 24-point deficit to Jorge Martin in our title decider here just a few months ago. And now we're talking about miracles required to get himself anywhere near Q2. It's been some fall from grace, hasn't it, in 2025, as far as Bagnaia is concerned. We should still add that he is a Grand Prix winner in 2025. He is still third in the World Championship. A third place, though, that is starting to come under some big threat right now from his trash-talking VR46 colleague, Marco Bezzecchi. Just 31 points now, splitting Bagnaia and Bez, whose sort of fortunes have been going in completely opposite directions of late.
Yeah, Pedro Costa, with the form he's in, might be able to join that battle soon if he continues the way he's going, but also if Bagnaia continues the form he's on. And this is not a particularly fast lap that Bagnaia's on, by the way, partway through this lap. Mir and Di Gianantonio considerably faster than him at the halfway stage of the lap. We're expecting 38s in this session. A mid-38, probably a decent benchmark to kick us off. A 38.8 for Joan Mir. Jack Miller has already beaten that. A 38.5 for the Aussie is a very strong opening gambit.
Yeah, lovely work by Miller, a 38.504. That has just been better by Di Gianantonio, who's down to 1:38.231. 7/10 quicker than anything he mustered yesterday for Digia, who was one of several riders who did get caught up in yellow flag drama right here, actually, at turn 2 on the outside when there were late falls to both Zarco and Bastianini. Thankfully for the Frenchman and the Italian, it did not cost them direct passage into Q2.
Yeah, only Brad Binder yesterday in practice has gone faster than that on this entire Grand Prix weekend so far for Fabio Di Gianantonio. So without question, we're going to be seeing 37s in Q2. We might see them in Q1 the way we're going. Quartararo's only effort puts him into third place, but he is not your top Yamaha right now.
And that would be history. We have never, ever had a 1:37 lap around this circuit, the Barcelona-Catalunya, and we've been coming here since 1992. Does history beckon once again? We've seen so many all-time lap records toppled in 2025. Loving the work so far on this sprint Saturday of Joan Mir, who we're looking at on screens right now, up through turn 11 and 12 goes the factory Honda start. He's already come flying out the traps this morning, leading the way in FP2. He drops down the hill now into turn 13, just the Catalunya corner left then for the number 36. He's just got a lot of confidence, all twitched there on the front there as he flung on to its right-hand side. That might have just cost him a little bit of time, but Mir surely heading to the top 2 he is. Second quickest, a 1:38.326 from the impressive Mir.
Bagnaia into 8th place, a 38.861. That is his fastest lap of the weekend so far. In fact, that's the first 1:38 of the entire Catalan Grand Prix for Pecco Bagnaia, but he is still over half a second adrift of Di Gianantonio at the top.
Aleix Espargaro, no stranger to Montmello, no stranger to pole position here at his home circuit. He's just got up into third place on the development RC213V Honda. That's some ride by Aleix Espargaro, 1:38.499. He's still nursing some rather nasty back injuries from a cycling accident about 3 weeks ago, which ruled him out of the Balaton Park Grand Prix in Hungary a couple of weeks back. Up to third, then goes Quartararo. That was close. Quartararo just 900ths away from bumping Mir out of that top 2.
It's only one thing that's been helping Di Gianantonio to that 38.2. He's top of the speed traps. He's clocked 356.4 kilometers an hour. That is 222 miles an hour as he brakes for turn 1.
Still not the fastest ever top speed we've had though here in Barcelona. That honour is still in the hands of Binder. 358.8 kilometres an hour. We've seen the KTM blitz through the speed guns here. It's not the speed traps that Gian Antonio is going to be too worried about. It's just getting himself directly into that Q2 spot.
Just to give you an idea of what Quartararo's up against, he's third on the Yamaha. He was 15 kilometres an hour slower through that same speed trap.
It's interesting yesterday, the two Grazine Ducatis of Alex Marquez and Fermin Aldeguer were the two slowest bikes through the speed gun yesterday. Well, they were giving them almost 10 kilometres an hour down the straight in that practice session. I can't remember on too many occasions where we've seen Ducatis bringing up the rear in terms of the speed gun. As Gigi Dall'Igna looks on, what a conundrum it is right now as far as the Ducati tech guru is concerned, as he himself searches for answers to so many questions that are being posed about Pecco Bagnaia right now. Run one completed then for the 63, and he's down in 10th place with a 138.861. Just to have any hope, any prayer of getting himself into Q2, he's got to find 0.6 of a second. That's a massive, massive step forward that he's going to have to find on that second soft tyre.
Especially given that, as mentioned, he's already lapping faster than he has at any stage in this weekend so far. So he's been generally lapping in the 39s and 40s for much of the weekend. A 38.8 is new grand for Pecco this weekend, but still an awful long way away from where he needs to be. At the moment, it is Gian Antonio and Joan Mir heading through, but we've got three riders on 38.4s essentially: Quartararo, Espargaro and Miller. Aldeguer 6th on a 38.6, then Martin on a 38.6 in 7th place. Vinales 8th on a 38.7 from Raul Fernandez, Bagnaia and Rins. Oliveira also in the 38s, but that's only good enough for 12th now.
So as it stands, we are potentially looking at Quartararo 13th on the grid, Martin 17th and Bagnaia 20th. Oh dear, we would have been able to call that just a few weeks ago as we look forward to this round 15 here in Barcelona. Still chance for some of the big names to rectify their current plight as Bagnaia then heads out on circuit, just making sure he's not disturbing anybody in that braking zone for the first corner. This is some ride, some effort by Vinales. As he mentioned, he's just lost so much muscle mass on the left-hand side of his body. And when you've got an issue with such a key element like a shoulder, when you have to use so much upper body strength to manoeuvre these 300 horsepower MotoGP bikes around racetracks, if you've got any kind of injury, you then use other parts of your body to compensate, and then they get fatigued, they get tired. So you fear for Vinales it's going to actually be a tough conclusion to this season.
Into Gian Antonio's cross here. That pack all came out of pit lane. You've got Aldeguer in the midst of all of that. You've got Chanchura spotted. Mir was in that group as well. And Gian Antonio came across the line to start his time lap and had a posse of riders all on out laps in the middle of turn one. And already the first lap of this second one for Gian Antonio has been completely trashed.
Good news, at least for Digia, is he's occupying the most important place at the moment in this Q1. He is P1 thanks to that 138.231. Surely we're going to get a 37 at the first one ever at some point this morning in Q1 or Q2. Bagnaia then building up speed, desperate to just build any kind of confidence as well right now, isn't he, on that Ducati GP25. Comes through the Catalunya corner. An incident involving Gian Antonio. Simon Crayford sharpening the pencil once again in the steward's office. Here we go then. There's a couple of real big laps coming up now for Pecco Bagnaia.
It's upon you as a rider leaving pit lane. We saw Bagnaia doing it when he came out of the pits around about a minute earlier. You've got to look behind, you've got to look back down the main straight and make sure that you're not impeding riders in the middle of turn one. Clearly there were a few riders there who did, and Gian Antonio had to bail out. So Bagnaia now, who's safely around turn 3 and now into the heart of 4.
Nothing too flash in that first sector as far as Bagnaia is concerned. The two factory Yamahas out on the circuit together. 20 leads 42. Quartararo leads Rins into this tricky turn 2. You have to be so careful when you flick it left through that second corner. It's about 40 seconds since you've actually been on the left-hand side of the tyre there. and you're not really carrying a lot of load. You didn't really grab too much brake to negotiate that second corner, so it's so easy to wash out the front of Zarco and Bastianini needed yesterday. Ralph Fernandez out of nowhere is putting together a real strong lap. He's using Bagnaia as a perfect reference ahead of him. Ralph Fernandez did take his first ever MotoGP front row here in the Catalan Grand Prix last May, so we know he's more than capable of putting together a strong lap.
I'd say in pre-practice to it earlier on this morning, 4 times in the last 8 or 9 Grand Prix, Ralph Fernandez has come through qualifying 1, through into Q2. But a 10th of a second adrift at this stage ain't going to be enough, because Joan Mir's less than that behind Gian Antonio, who himself is going quicker. Quartararo might be about to set our first 1:37 in the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya history. You can see it's going super quickly. Fernandez goes top on a 38.2, and Oliveira now into the top 2 as well.
Yeah, and they followed Bagnaia to do it. And Bagnaia now is down in 11th place. Fernandez leads the way then. Quartararo's on absolute barnstormer here in Barcelona. The former world champion, down the hill he goes into turn 14. Are we looking at a potential historic lap here from Quartararo? He's produced so many in his career. He's been so many already in 2025. Wow. He has done it. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Bang, thank you very much. A 1:37.906. Fabio Quartararo, the brilliant Frenchman, is the first rider ever here in the Catalan Grand Prix to lap in the 1:37. It's almost a 10th and a half clear now of fellow Fabio Gian Antonio.
He's blown a massive hole in it. 3/10 clear of Ralph Fernandez. Of course, Gian Antonio and Miller have now squeezed themselves into that gap. Aldeguer is now looking to try and do the same. He can only go third. 4 thousandths of a second in it between Gian Antonio and Aldeguer, who are second and third.
Quartararo poles in Jerez, Le Mans, Silverstone and Assen already so far in 2025. He's setting himself up here for potentially an attack on a 5th pole this season. What a lap that was by Quartararo, and as we said, he has delivered some show-stopping laps already in 2025. That is right up there with the best of them. A massive shake of the head from Davide Tardozzi. He turns away from the screens because he knows this right now is painful viewing if you're a Pecco Bagnaia fan. He's 13th at the moment. 13th. He's gone up to 12th at the moment. Pecco Bagnaia is going to be starting the Catalan Sprint and the Catalan Grand Prix today and tomorrow in 22nd place. He has got Lorenzo Savadori and Somkhiat Chantra, the only 2 riders currently that are slower than Bagnaia here at a circuit where he won both Grand Prix at last year. What on earth is going on?
Surely a new low for Pecco Bagnaia in a season which feels like it's full of them. Yes, he's up at the first sector, but don't read too much into that because it's a very short first sector. But we are into desperation territory now for the Ducati superstar, a 2-time world champion who's so used to starting on the front row of MotoGP grids. As it stands, he's on the back row.
Yeah, just look how much time he lost in the second split. He's lost pretty much 3.5 tenths. Estimated P10, so he might recover another couple of places, but P10 is just not cutting it. Not cutting it at all, is it? Bagnaia said yesterday, miracle time just to get into Q2. Well, that miracle is not happening, is it, at all? It's all unraveling once again in front of our eyes as far as the Italian is concerned. 28 years of age now, Bagnaia. This is Grand Prix start number 226 of his career. There can't be too many previously that have gone before where he's suffered so badly. Aldeguer, maybe some late drama as he tries to split the 2 Fabios. Quartararo and Gian Antonio inside the top 2 at the moment. What is going on here with Bagnaia? Over the line he goes. It's up to 11th. No further action from the FIM stewards involved in the incident at turn 1 for Fabio Gian Antonio. Checkered flag taken for Pecco Bagnaia. At best, he's going to be starting the Catalan Sprint and Grand Prix in 21st place. What a nightmare.
Well, both team and family feeling the pain there with Pecco Bagnaia watching on in the Ducati box. Where does he go from here? We know he's in a bit of a crisis of confidence on board that Ducati, but it almost feels like we're in a situation where only a brand new Ducati altogether is going to fix Pecco Bagnaia's problems. We're talking about a rebuild. Boy, that rebuild is going to be some process to get Bagnaia back to where he is. Confidence completely destroyed.
Shot to pieces. absolutely demolished. It's just a gruesome watch. Right now, just no confidence. And Ria, no Yamaha to find high one, the fastest ever lap of the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, the first ever 1:37. He was pushing, he's all action, isn't he, Fabio Quartararo? And credit as well to Fabio Di Giannantonio, despite getting a little bit disturbed on one of his runs, and when a bunch of riders exited pit lane, he is also through into Q1.
Spoke a lot, didn't we, before the session got underway, of the 4 world champions in this session. At least one of them did get through. 2021 world champion Fabio Quartararo. As far as the others were concerned, I have to say, given how he was going about 25 minutes ago, that's a big shock and underperformance from Joan Mir on the factory Honda. 7th in that session, 17th on the grid for the 36, 1 place ahead of Jorge Martin, who of course produced a minor miracle in Hungary, having qualified 17th. He's a place further back on the grid here.
Oh, dearie me. Where does Pecco Bagnaia and where does his side of the factory Ducati garage go from here? He'll be hoping for some home comforts next time out in Misano, but that's his worst qualifying performance since the 2022 Portuguese Grand Prix. I think he busted himself up that day. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't even think he took part in qualifying, did he? On that occasion. Poor, dearie me. He plonks back into the seat in the factory Ducati garage, and I'm sure himself at the moment just a little bit baffled, a little bit near Q2.
He will be on the 7th row of the grid tomorrow. Fabio Quartararo then, with a new all-time lap record, blitzes through to Q2 along with Fabio Di Giannantonio. Aldeguer misses out by 0.004 of a second, 3rd and 13th on the grid for him. Miller was 4th ahead of Ralph Fernandez and Miguel Oliveira. Joan Mir 7th, that's disappointing given how well he went in FP2. Martin 8th from Malaysia Spargo, Alex Rins. The dejected Pecco Bagnaia, a new low for him down in 11th. Maverick Vinales 12th ahead of Lorenzo Savadori and Somkhat Chantra.
Well, we hoped it was going to be special, we said it was going to be special, and it certainly was. All thanks, once again, to the phenomenal Frenchman Fabio Quartararo, who delivers the fastest ever MotoGP lap around the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. A record-breaking 1:37.906 has put Quartararo in the hunt for his 5th pole position in 2025. Coming up next, more drama over 15 minutes of Q2 as Marc Marquez looks to set himself up for a potential 14th sprint win of the season. 15 minutes has put Quartararo in the hunt for his 5th pole position in 2025. Coming up next, more drama over 15 minutes of Q2 as Marc Marquez looks to set himself up for a potential 14th sprint win of the season. Good morning and welcome back to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya. That's a great shot, isn't it? Great to see the car parks jam-packed full, traffic jams outside the circuit. Not so great if you're in them, but trust us, once you are plonked in your seat and ready for action here in Barcelona, you are in for a spectacular show. You're in for some treat as you get to see the world's best riders tackle one of the world's best racetracks. 4.66 kilometres is the Montmello circuit. Everything thrown into that layout, hard-braking zones, top speeds of nearly 360 kilometres an hour, high-speed corners and high-speed drama, I'm sure, coming up next in our 15-minute Q2 session. We have already had a historic Q1 session as Fabio Quartararo has found the first ever 137 lap on board the factory Yamaha. He has come out of that heavyweight Q1 session alongside fellow Fabio Di Gianantonio on the VR46 Ducati, which means it is Binder, Acosta, the Marquez siblings, Bezzecchi, Bastianini, Morbidelli, Zarco, Marini, Agura, Quartararo and Di Gianantonio, your dozen riders who are now fighting for our 15th pole position of the season. The standout rider of Saturday mornings in 2025 has been Marc Marquez, 8 poles already to his name so far this season. And can he maintain this astonishing recent undefeated record? He's going for his 14th sprint success of the season this afternoon over 12 laps in that Tissot sprint battle. He is unbeaten in the last 7 rounds, 40 successive wins, 23 victories out of 28 so far this season, and he knows better than anybody that he can take a giant leap towards that 7th MotoGP world title here this weekend in front of his home crowd. 10 points more than his brother Alex if he racks that up here this weekend. Well, next time out when we go to the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli in San Marino next weekend, we could be looking at a situation where Marc Marquez, with 6 rounds remaining, could be crowned MotoGP World Champion. Potentially standing in his way are a few surprise names, and none more so, Lewis, than Brad Binder, who was dynamite on practice Friday here yesterday. His 138.141 was an all-time lap record that didn't even last 24 hours, but nevertheless, Binder, and in particular both factory KTMs, have been on the money all weekend.
3 of them that are in this session might all fancy their chances here. Bastianini on the Tech 3 bike, which of course has been in the news already this weekend, was sick yesterday, so certainly all 3 of the RC16s have a real chance in this qualifying session. You saw on screens a moment ago Brad Binder's average qualifying for 2025, which is 13th. He's definitely going to beat that, but there are clearly some early initial issues as they work on that 33 bike.
Yeah, behind that screen is one KTM, which is clearly at the moment not in full functioning order, which will be disappointing to some Red Bull KTM fans right now. It was a great Friday, wasn't it? A 1-2 for KTM. 42% front row starting record so far this year for Quartararo. That does include 4 previous poles, as we mentioned in Q1, Jerez, Le Mans, Silverstone and Assen. Well, he's already shown what he's capable of in that electrifying Q1 session, a 137.906, the one and only so far lap we've ever had in the 137s around this Catalan venue.
Of course, whilst many of the fans here are wearing red t-shirts with 93s on them, Fabio Quartararo has his fans here at the Circuit of Barcelona-Catalunya. He has them all over the world, but of course, hailing from Nice in the south of France, he's not a million miles away from there. A million miles away from the front of the grid, though, is that man, Pecco Bagnaia, with the screens up at the front of that Ducati box. He is a spectator along with us in this Q2 session.
Crikey, I'd like to be a fly on the wall behind that screen right now to find out what's going on as far as the number 63 is concerned. Let's go down to Jack quickly for a Brad Binder update.
Yeah, it's going to be the second bike for Brad Binder in this one. The first bike, there's some kind of electronic issue, it seems. The fairings are off, so they've managed to just about get this number 2 bike ready in time. But remember back to Hungary 2 weeks ago, where Pedro Acosta, when he crashed on his first run, said that the feeling with that second bike was very, very different, because they only had 1 set of these special forks that have been using. Brad was using them yesterday as well, and obviously no time to be able to swap them across to the number 2 bike. How big of an impact is that going to have for the South African?
Yeah, we're about to find out. Top work, Jack. Thanks very much. Then as Brad Binder heads out on circuit on the spare bike. Of course, the problem for Binder as well is he can't ill afford any kind of mistake, can he? Because with his number 1 bike at the moment out of commission, that's the only bike he's got available at his disposal, which just does ramp up that pressure on the South African.
He's going to try and clear his mind of clearly a bit of chaos that's been going on in his KTM box before the session got underway, and just focus on the job at hand. But as you say, he has lost that safety net that he carried into this qualifying session. A qualifying session where he must have come into it feeling that he had a major opportunity. He still does, but perhaps some early adversity for the South African to overcome.
So Marc Marquez hunting down what he hopes will be a 75th Premier Class pole position. He's well versed in these kind of situations, isn't he? In front of his home crowd, they're almost demanding, expecting that Marc can continue this golden winning run. Of all places to see it broken, this will be the last place he wanted to have it ended, in front of his home crowd here in Barcelona. Here is Gian Antonio then. He really had to dig deep to get himself out of that Q1 session. To be fair, he did. A 1:38.045 was Digi's best lap, as our two Fabios negotiated their way out of Q1. Here is Bastianini then at the moment. All is lonesome on this long start-finish straight. Heartbreaking now, that leg dangle as he looks for stability on the 23 KTM into that first corner. Be wary of turn 2, will the beast, after once again he threw it into the scenery at that second corner. That's sort of like a yearly occurrence, isn't it, as far as Ney is concerned?
Yeah, every year he says, I always crash at turn 2, as Johan Zarco is certainly scrapping Marc Marquez's early attempt. Bezzecchi came up the inside of Marc Marquez in FP2, and it seems like there are 11 riders in this qualifying 2 session saying, Marc, today is not going to be your day. Davide didn't enjoy that one.
Let's be honest, Marc's dished out a few hard moves himself down here. And you know what? Marc will not be bothered by that one bit. Yeah, he just... Very seldom does Marc complain when push comes to shove. He says, because he says that's just part of the game, that's the nature of the beast.
The slipstream that Zarco got helped him hit 356 Ks down the main straight. So Zarco, clearly, with a massive slipstream, says this could be my best opportunity to get myself towards the front couple of rows of the grid.
You just get the impression that with that new aero, the new chassis and some updated electronics, that the Honda, you're already in third gear coming out that final corner, so you're already carrying a fair rate of knots. You've already got some momentum onto the start-finish straight. Well, these upgrades clearly have helped HRC with a bit of poke down the long start-finish straight, which bodes well for the future race. We've got some real horsepower-hungry circuits coming up when you think of Sepang, Phillip Island. Ortega is a real engine circuit as well, isn't it, with all the stop-and-go nature of that track.
We're watching the 37 here of Pedro Acosta, and it's 37s that surely we need in this Q2 session, given that Quartararo already set one in qualifying 1. Here comes Pedro Acosta, who's straight down to a 1:38.147, matched by Johan Zarco, who was, you can see why he was so keen to get past Marc Marquez, because that's the quickest lap Zarco's done all weekend.
Top work by Acosta. That is already nearly a tenth of a second quicker than anything he managed yesterday. Alex Marquez, though, just look at this. This could be obliterating Quartararo's 1:37.9, the all-time record from Q1. Oh, it's close. It's really close. It is our second ever 1:37 then here in Barcelona. It's put Alex into P1 here in Q2, a commanding position at the moment of over a tenth and a half. But Fabio Quartararo still just about is our fastest ever rider in Catalunya.
Costa getting a bit bottled up here behind the Trackhouse Aprilia of Iacura. He's still picking up time though, but he'll be keen to get past this Aprilia on the run down, probably down to turn 10. He's not going to be any way through turn 9. Look how close he is. He can almost reach out and touch the tail of the Trackhouse Aprilia. Can he now get past on the run down to turn 10? Because pole position might well hinge on it.
Costa, Marc, Quartararo all on fire here, aren't they? That's getting really close between Acosta and Agura on the track out of Aprilia. How close you want it going through turn 10?
He wasn't backing out of that, was he?
Alex at the moment on course for what would just be his second ever pole position in MotoGP, none since Termas in 2023. Acosta is flying, so too is Marc, Quartararo and Alex. What a session this has already been here in Catalunya. Acosta then out of the final corner, having finally shrugged off Agura. Over the line he goes. It's a 1:38.073, which is a PB lap from Acosta, but he stays in second.
Marc Marquez only 5th on the 38.266. Here comes Quartararo, who's only done 1:37 today. He now finds another to take provisional pole.
Superb. Absolutely superb. Another top-notch lap, isn't it, from Quartararo. A pair of 37s now on this sprint Saturday for the Frenchman. Alex Marquez, though, does retaliate with a 1:37.914 back in P1, but it is still just a whisker outside of Quartararo's Q1 benchmark. Seems at the moment that this is Alex versus Quartararo in this battle for pole position here in Barcelona. Acosta at the moment finds himself on the front row. He had to work very, very hard for that 1:38.073, particularly when he was up against one of his former foes in Moto2, Ayagura.
We have an overtake of the race award that we hand out after every Grand Prix. I'm not sure whether we can apply it to qualifying, but that move around the outside of turn 10 on Ayagura, who was pushing. Agura did his personal best lap of the session on that very same lap, whilst Acosta was siding around the outside of him into turn 10. Surely Acosta must have lost a little bit of time busy trying to fight his way through the clear, so surely there's a 37 in the number 37.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way, doesn't it, from Acosta's point of view. Mark at the moment, they're down in 6th place. It's Alex, Quartararo, Acosta, your front row. Row 2 at the moment would feature Zarco, Morbidelli and Mark. Brad Binder, just a reminder, out on that second factory KTM after some technical issues, robbed him of his #1 preferred RC16. Binder's opening salvo was good enough for 8th place, just ahead of Bastianini.
Surely he must have left a little bit of margin on that first run. He just knew he had to get some sort of lap time on the board in case he can't get on that first bike, and he's got to resume the session on the same bike he started the session with. So Binder now does have the luxury of being able to take a little bit more risk on this run because he does have that banker to his name. 8th place at the moment for Brad Binder. Bastianini 9th on a 38.6 from Gian Antonio Marini and Agura. And Marc Marquez sits down, and it's about as exasperated as I think we've seen the World Championship leader in 2025.
Yeah, Hungary was all plain sailing, wasn't it, as far as 93 is concerned. This so far has been anything but. This was the move that Zarco put on him going into turn 1. Yeah, Zarco picking up the factory Ducati, a Mark on the inside. At the moment, Silverstone, Assen and the Red Bull Ring. The only 3 times so far this season where Mark has found himself off the front row of the grid.
Perfectly legitimate. Johann Zarco well within his rights to do that, and he set the 4th fastest time in the process. So Johann Zarco will say the strategy paid me dividends. He's currently on the front of row 2.
Termas 2023 then, the Argentinian Grand Prix a couple of years ago, the last time and only time Alex has found himself on pole position in MotoGP. It's tight at the top, just 0.05 of a second splitting Alex and Quartararo. This would be some Saturday morning as far as Quartararo and the factory Yamaha team are concerned, to get himself out of Q1 with what is still standing, an all-time lap record of 1:37.906, to then get himself on the front row as well. Just brilliant once again as far as Quartararo is concerned. So with 6 minutes remaining then of this Q2 session, it's about to get pretty fast and pretty frantic here, you think, in Catalunya, as we move into the vital final stages. Who's going to be on pole position, number 15 so far this season? Only 4 riders have found themselves heading the grid in 2025. Marc Marquez on 8 occasions, Quartararo on 4, and then 1 apiece for Bagnaia and Bezzecchi. Well, there'll be no repeat, we know, as far as Bagnaia is concerned. He's not even inside the top 20 on the grid for the Sprintland Grand Prix.
So Brad Binder up behind Marc Marquez, and it's funny, isn't it, because we've often heard from Marc Marquez back in the days when he was looking for a toe, someone to follow in qualifying. He would always say, follow the rider who needs to push for a lap, who can't afford to roll out of it. I guess really the rider in that particular boat right now is Marc Marquez himself in 6th place.
So Quartararo, the last of our 12 riders in this Q2 session that's going to venture out on circuit. You can hear Fabio himself saying, let's go, 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 go. And he does indeed go. Heading out onto the circuit then is Quartararo at the moment in 2nd place, which I think if you'd have said to Fabio last night, having missed out on a spot directly into Q2, 11th in practice, you'll be on the front row, he would have snapped your hands off, no doubt about that. What then can Mark deliver late on in this session? At the moment on course for what would be his worst starting position on a factory Ducati. His lowest grid slots so far this year have been a trio of 4 places in Silverstone, Assen and Austria, as we just mentioned. But there is plenty of time for him to solve that situation. Morbidelli just being informed that he has got the 93 for company.
He was moving around under Bezzecchi's. He was trying to get it stopped for turn one. Marc Marquez is still sticking in behind Frankie Morbidelli, and I remember Frankie Morbidelli with some interesting hand gestures to Marc Marquez once upon a time when he was being followed by him in a qualifying session. I don't think we'll be worrying about that at this stage, but of course with a near 1 kilometre, in fact it is a kilometre long, the start-finish straight here, a slipstream particularly useful. Marc Marquez now is going to slot in right behind his brother by the looks of it.
Yeah, the ideal candidate to follow, isn't he, right now? Alex still holding that provisional pole position, but as you can see on screens, that is already coming under some major threat, because Pedro Acosta halfway around his current lap, his 6th lap of this session, and he's making it count. This is brilliant once again by Acosta. Tips it right now through turn 9.
Morbidelli jumped out of the way into turn 1. He didn't want to tow Marc Marquez around. Alex Marquez, though, is the rider now doing it. Alex Marquez also going very quickly in the first sector. Acosta has picked up time, and without Ayagura to worry about into turn 10, he's now on target to potentially set a new all-time lap record.
Yeah, it could be just his 2nd ever pole position in MotoGP. He did it on our flyway run in Japan at the back end of last year. Acosta charging halfway through now the 4th split. Over the line, the Gian Antonio goes 2nd in Q1, up now to 4th place. Only a whisk off the front row himself. Oh, we're looking at a history, though, here from Acosta. We are! Pedro Acosta take a bow. 137.840 puts Acosta on pole position.
He's fluffed his lines in a few qualifying 2 sessions this year. He hasn't on this occasion, but Alex Marquez wants pole position back. He hasn't had a pole position since the beginning of 2023, back in Termas Rio Hondo. That was, of course, in wet conditions. Can he now end his pole drought at the perfect place?
There is work to do, plenty of work to do as far as Mark is concerned. 175 points clear in the World Championship going into sprint this afternoon. 8th at the moment is Mark, and making no sort of big inroads towards that top 3. Quartararo on another strong lap. Alex, though, now absolutely mullers the fastest time ever. Just behind him is Mark, who leaps up from 8th into 2nd, but Alex Marquez with an incredible lap, a 137.536. Only Mark and Quartararo within half a second. Ayagura, look at this. Acosta and Agura on the charge. Quartararo still clinging on to a place on the front row of the grid. But what a lap from Alex, a 137.536. Absolutely sensational.
Quartararo into 2nd, albeit not a very close one. Acosta's previous lap did get cancelled for track limits at the final corner, so that's why he's now 4th, although he might be about to regain that 2nd place. Surely, though, Alex Marquez's 37.5 is unassailable.
A mid-37. Who would have thought that would be at the pace coming into this session? Acosta and all the hard work to be done once again. As far as he's concerned, he's on his last flying lap now as he goes sideways on the brakes. He really is attacking hard on an RC16 into that first corner. Here's his teammate Brad Binder, of course, who led the way on Friday afternoon. A brilliant performance yesterday by the KTM star. He's had to tackle, though, this Q2 session wary that the bike he sat on is the only bike at his disposal in this Q2 run. At the moment, Binder down in 10th place, potentially looking to push himself up inside that top 6. Let's see how he gets on in this 4th sector. Just ahead of him sits Marini on the factory Honda. Binder 10th, over the line he goes. In fact, he actually lost a place because Marini leapt ahead of him. Morbidelli goes up into 4th.
Acosta absolutely torched the first sector, but he's had a poor 2nd sector. Gian Antonio is also going very quickly. You can now follow his progress on the bottom of your screens as the Marquez brothers start their final laps of the session. At the moment, they are both on the front row of the grid. Marc Marquez did tell us yesterday, Alex looks the strongest. He's been proven correct this morning.
Yeah, he's been a spot-on assessment, that, wasn't it, by Mark, as they now charge through turn 3. So careful not to generate too much wheel spin there. Wheel spin creates heat. Heat means a big drop-off in grip, so that's going to be a significant factor at play in the Grand Prix here tomorrow over 24 laps. Mark versus Alex, 93 versus 73. That's been the tail of the tape, hasn't it, so often? Oh, Marc was nearly down. He wiped the front out there, down mid-corner through turn 5. And that's over as far as Marc's pole chances are concerned. He was almost on the deck through 5.
He did go all in, and in the end, he nearly lost it all into turn 5, but he will still start on the front row of the grid. There is no one out there at the moment who is going to change the situation. And after 2.5 years, and what a time to do it, what a place to do it, at home at the Catalan Grand Prix, Alex Marquez finally has ended his wait for a second MotoGP pole position.
17th pole of his career. It has been well worth the wait. Termas was a special one, but this will feel even better. Pole position in front of his home crowd. We're looking forward to Marc. He was so close to disaster there, wasn't he? The inside camera from turn 5, that front, that's not the angle it should be making. It's another spectacular, it's another textbook, trademark Marc Marquez save going through turn 5. Just looking at him digging that left knee and elbow into the tarmac, just desperately hoping that he doesn't lose control of that GP25 Davide Tardozzi. Tranquilo, Marc, tranquilo, Marc. I'm not sure the old ticket can take too much more of this. Fabio Quartararo has had a stunning Saturday. It's him that splits the Marquez brothers on the front row. Quartararo himself got down to a 1:37.803, which was a 10th faster than what he managed to get through fastest in Q1. 875 days after his previous one and only pole in MotoGP at Termas de Rio Hondo, but this will be extra sweet to do it in front of his home crowd at a circuit which we know Alex loves. It really does play to his fast and flowing riding style. Pole position then for BK Gresini Racing. Let's get the thoughts of the boss, Michele Massini.
Michele, what a job by Alex. Coming into the weekend, I'm sure he knew that there was an opportunity here, but he's taking it with both hands. And that final sector, wow, how much time did he gain there?
Definitely flying in the sector 4. I have to see from the data where he passed, but standing lap, standing pole position here at home. So we have all the ingredients then to make really good both races later and tomorrow, but we see.
Good luck, well done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, great job by the Gresini Racing team. That was the lap which we saw scrubbed off for Pedro Acosta, which at that time was the pole lap. Ogura, he's had a brilliant weekend so far. Top job by the Moto2 World Champion. 10th fastest yesterday to get himself directly through the Q2 for the first time since round 1 in Buriram. And Ogura-san, well, he's going to be leading the Aprilia charge here this weekend. 8th on the grid for the Japanese star. That's 4 places ahead of Marco Bezzecchi.
Just not this place, doesn't it? Of course, Ogura, winner of the Moto2 battle here 1 year ago. Fabio Quartararo, well, no one's ever doubted his ability to produce a qualifying lap against the odds, but from Q1 at the start of the day to the front row of the grid, around about half an hour later, once again demonstrating that over a single qualifying lap there is very few better than Fabio Quartararo.
He's just awesome to watch. You just know every time you see Fabio Quartararo out on circuit, he is wringing the neck out of that M1. Evidence there on screens that rear tyre was snaking left, right on the hard braking zone into turn 10. But he's getting a great reception, as he thoroughly deserves, from the main grandstand and from the Gresini Racing team. Alex Marquez's 4th sector was next level. That was the reason why he's going to be getting a Tissot watch to celebrate what a stunning pole position here in Barcelona. Well, we thought Brad Bittner's 38.141 was pretty exceptional to lead practice yesterday, but that looks like snail's pace at the moment, doesn't it? As we've had a mid 1:37, a 1:37.536. Pole position to Alex by over a quarter of a second, the gap between him and Quartararo, 1st to 2nd. A pretty big gap then between Quartararo and Marc, of nearly a 10th.5 in terms of 3rd place. Marc Marquez, though, is on the front. At least he is on the front row of the grid. He said yesterday it's turns 13 and 14, the fast right-handers, where he was struggling. That's where he could cclearly see that Alex had the upper hand. And as you could see there, a big gap 2/10 Mark was losing a load in that fourth split.
Although, of course, that wouldn't have put him on pole position, even had he matched Alex in the fourth sector. Alex was faster everywhere today than Marc Marquez. You saw how hard Mark was pushing to try and beat him on his final lap. He nearly watched the front at turn 5, smiling away for Frankie Morbidelli. He would have settled for 4th place at the end of play yesterday when he was 7th at the end of practice. Morbidelli heads a heavyweight road 2, both of VR46 Ducatis sandwiching the rapid Pedro Acosta.
Johan Zarco on the LCR Honda, good job by him, 7th fastest. He gets row 3 ahead of Agura and Bastianini. This is the helicopter shot looking down on the last flying lap for number 93, Marc Marquez, and that was the big front end slide there. Tuck in the front going through turn 5. Alex had a front row seat for that one. I'm sure even Alex himself thought, well, that's a crash. Probably for anybody else it would have been a crash, but of course we know that he's got the cat-like reflexes, hasn't he, Marc Marquez, and he somehow defies gravity once again. Just look at the angle of that front tyre. Right foot lifts off the peg, and in the blink of an eye, split second, he's got the reactions to just dig the knee and elbow into the timer. Alex looking over to his right and just going, Mark, how are you still on 2 wheels, mate? How are you still upright? First and third, though, on the grid in their home Grand Prix. It's all smiles post Q2 for both Alex and Mark, and for a very good reason, because it was an excellent Q2 session. Well, we said both Q1 and Q2 were going to deliver some high drama. They did not disappoint, did they? After the late scare at turn 5, Mark on the front row of the grid here in Barcelona, and he's with Jack.
Mark, brilliant job to be on the front row. We could see just how hard you were pushing out there with that big moment on the final lap at turn 5. Was that the maximum today?
Yeah, that front row was the main target. I already understand yesterday and this morning that Alex had a bit more than us, especially in that T4. He's super fast on the last 2 corners. But let's see, we start in the front row, so this is also, it will be a big help for the race. And part of that, confidence is getting better and better. But as we know, here I'm struggling a bit more than on other circuits.
Great job, well done.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Marc Marquez. Struggling more on other circuits. But if you're struggling and you're on the front row of the grid, it just shows the high level that Mark is currently operating at. This was a section of that Q2 where he had no dramas tackling turn 5. We couldn't say the same about his final lap, but yeah, he still is able to qualify on the front row of the grid, and you just know that he's going to be right there in the mix to win his 8th successive sprint in 2025. It has been some Saturday so far for Fabio Quartararo and Alex Marquez, our top 2 on the grid. Just a quick reminder, 3 p.m. local time will be lights out for the Tissot sprint. This was the last flying lap for Acosta. Well, we've seen him go sideways into turn 1. He was all in, wasn't he, for the front row and better, and then he goes, or he gets it wrong going into turn 7. Off-roading goes Acosta. No significant damage, you feel. There's plenty of opportunities coming the way of Acosta from the middle of the second row in 5th. Without any question, he has already demonstrated brilliant race pace all weekend so far. So he is going to be in the mix in that 12-lap sprint. Just once again, confirmation, we told you, in Q2, just the 2nd pole of Alex's Premier Class career. But what a sprint Saturday it's been already for French superstar Fabio Quartararo. Fastest in Q1, 2nd on the grid, and he's with Jack.
Fabio, talk about a turnaround from Q1 now onto the front row of the grid. We know just how quick you are over 1 lap, but did even that surprise you today?
Yeah, to be honest, it's a great feeling to come back on the front row, to enjoy. Especially, it was a long time that I was not pushing my bike to the maximum. And yeah, we know that the pace is a little bit lower than the 2 brothers, but we will make our best to make a good start, good laps, and also thanks to all the fans to be there, and especially I know there is many French, so thank you very much.
Great job, well done.
Thank you.
Awesome job by Fabio Quartararo. Yeah, we're about 150 kilometres south of the French border. That's why we see so many French fans making the trip to support Quartararo and Zarco. 7th front row start of the season for the factory Yamaha rider. And just reminding Toprak Razgatlioglu that there might be some stoppy competition in Yamaha next year as he celebrates that 2nd place with a brilliant rolling stopping into pit lane. 3rd week in a row then a rider out of Q1 has gone onto the front row of the grid. Quartararo 2nd then with a 1:37.803. Felt like Fabio was delivering 37s for fun throughout Q1 and Q2 this morning. One rider who delivered a 1:37 and had a lot of fun around Barcelona this morning. Just his 2nd ever MotoGP pole position in front of his home crowd as well. Alex Marquez with Jack.
Alex, first pole position in 2.5 years, and what a place to do it at home here in Catalunya as well. Just talk to us about that lap and the final sector in particular. What's the special magic that you've got there?
Yeah, I mean, for us it was really special and really important to be in the front row today because especially we had a really good pace during all the weekend, but you know, in the quali you play for everything for all the weekend. But yeah, we did a really good first time attack, and the second one I said, okay, if we put everything together we can improve a little bit. I was not expecting to make that 37.5 when I was thinking. I was expecting 37.7, 37.6 maximum. But yeah, happy we put everything together. But you know, now come the important moment, you know, the sprint race and the long race where the points are there on the table. So we need to be really concentrated. I'm enjoying a lot this weekend and I will try to go for it.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Some lap that, wasn't it, by Alex? I think even surprising himself that he found that 1:37.536. What a shot that is. I've been power sliding the Ducati GP24 through that turn 13. Of course, he made his first appearance on the GP24 right here in Barcelona at the post-race test last November, where guess who was fastest? It was Alex. This is not a surprise at all to see him as rapid as he has been, and it's worth noting as well, he is the only rider so far in 2025 that has been able to defeat Marc on a sprint Saturday afternoon. Can he make it just his 2nd sprint success of 2025? Of course, he was the victor at our sprint at Silverstone back at the end of May. It's last May 2024. Actually right here in Catalunya, the last time Ducati were beaten in a sprint. Alex, the big favourite though going into this afternoon's TSO sprint from pole.
What a pole position, what a qualifying session. Alex Marquez on a 37.5, destroying the field in what was a competitive Q2. Quartararo 2nd from Marc Marquez. Frankie Morbidelli with 2 VR46 Ducatis on row 2, sandwiching Pedro Acosta. Gian Zarco 7th ahead of top Aprilia Iagura. Bastianini 9th from Marini, Binder and Bezzecchi. Of course, Binder had his problems pre-session. Aldeguer missed out on Q2 by just 4 thousandths. That leaves him 13th on the grid ahead of Jack Miller and Ralph Hernandez, Miguel Oliveira, Joan Mir and Jorge Martin. A heavyweight 6th row, Aleix Espargaro, Alex Rins, and believe it or not, Pecco Bagnaia on the 7th row. Bagnaia, his worst qualifying for over 3 years, 21st, with only Maverick Vinales, Lorenzo Savadori and Sokiat Chantra behind him. Marc Marquez takes another step towards a brand new BMW M, even if he was only 3rd in qualifying today. His advantage of Alex Marquez is cut to 70 points. Fabio Quartararo, with 2nd on the grid, is now a long way clear of Pecco Bagnaia.
Well, that was something rather special, wasn't it, to kick off Sprint Saturday here in sunny Spain. Alex Marquez will lead the field away in the 12-lap sprint at 3 p.m. local time this afternoon. Will it be Alex who will finally break Brother Marc's incredible winning streak? Marc Marquez looking for an 8th successive double victory, which would move him a step closer to title glory in 2025. But it is Alex Marquez for just the 2nd time in his MotoGP career that will fire away from pole position with a new all-time lap record in front of his jubilant home crowd.